Hello, welcome to the Raw Report
Okay.
with A&R News. I'm your host, Ryan Jackson-Saw, speaking today with Tonya Scott, a medical professional of over 20 years who's sadly been pushed out of the workforce due to the no jab, no work policy. Welcome, Tonya, to the show.
Thank you. Good to talk to you, Ryan.
Oh, you too. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself. You've obviously worked a long time in the medical profession. Whereabouts did you work?
Well, for starters, I started off actually working in disabilities, working a lot with like car accident victims and people with multiple sclerosis and that sort of thing. And then I did that for about 5 years, and then I went over across the road to the hospital/nursing home, and I was there looking after the elderly across there, which I absolutely enjoyed. So I really like it, and I'm really sad now that I can't do that. So yeah, very sad about it. So that's where I've been working, and I actually live in Strathalbyn in South Australia. So yeah,
Good old South Australia.
there you go.
Why did you get into the medical field, nursing and caring?
Well, I just like hanging about people. But saying that, I also, people really annoy me too. So, but I just found that it's nice to do something for somebody, whether they thank you for it or whether they don't. You just sort of feel as though you've got, you know, like you've done something for someone for the day. It's yeah, it just makes you feel really good. So, and I guess that's it. I like talking to people. Yeah, that's why I got into it mainly.
So you're given close to 20 years of your life, and so it must be a real slap in the face for you to just suddenly get a letter that it says, sorry, if you don't get these medical experiments, you're out on your butt. How did that make you feel?
I guess it made me feel quite scared at the time, because I'm the only wage earner in my family, for starters, because my husband back a couple of years ago had a heart attack, so he's been unable to work since then. So it would have been up to me to do it, and I sort of kind of thought that I was going to retire where I was, and I was quite happy there. So yeah, so it was a bit of a shock, and I'd also been off on sick leave for a period of time, so I was getting ready to come back to work, and then I get the letter saying that no, you can't. And it's not just a matter of no, you can't come in, you can't even step foot in the place anymore. And I guess when it is a slap in the face, because you've been working there for so long and there's no thank you for your service or anything like that. And I really feel, not only, you know, from work mates and everything, but all the nurses all over Australia, because, you know, you don't do this job because you want it for the money, because the money really isn't there. You don't get paid very much. The carer is anything from $20 an hour through to, say, $35 an hour, depending on your, you know, what shifts you do. And then you've got EN isn't much more than that. RNs, they get paid, but a little more. But it's really, when you think about you know, some people are on 45 plus an hour. It's not a lot of money for what you do. So yeah, so people don't do it because they want it for the money. People are doing it because they do it. And I think that's why you've got so many nurses and medical people out there, because, you know, they're hurting, because you don't do this job because you want the money. You do it because you love it. It's, you know, you just like going to work every day.
Yeah, it's absolutely.
So, yeah, that's why it's a slap in the face.
It's an absolutely essential service as well. We're facing a big problem where they did a recent survey. 30% of nurses are thinking about leaving right now, or are in the process of leaving. It feels like we're not actually getting the real statistics, because that doesn't seem to match the numbers that are being released of how many unemployed nurses there are now. Why do you think that is?
Yeah. Well, I know why that is. It's because people like myself, I have so many days of long service leave. So I've got, say, like 3 months of long service leave, which I need to use. So technically I'm still employed. So the statistics will show that there's a lot of those nurses employed, but they're not allowed to set foot on the premises. So that would be why they're only saying that amount. If you go by the amount of staff that are on shift or staff that are on roster or being taken off the roster, I would say you're probably looking more at 2,500, I would say. And that just doesn't include nurses either. We also have like cleaning staff, you've got catering staff, ancillary staff, and that's like physiotherapists and diversional therapists, and they're people that come in and do activities and stuff like that. So we're just not talking about nursing staff. You could say like medical staff, hospital staff. So it's a lot of people, it's not nurses. Well, so when you start adding those people in, well, then it goes up even higher. Yeah.
It sounds like we're manufacturing an actual real crisis here. While the COVID death numbers, they're basically nothing. Like if you compare them to the 2019 influenza death rates, the COVID deaths are nothing. But when we getting rid of all these essential workers in the workplace, we're creating a real problem, aren't we?
Yeah, definitely. And we're not only talking about hospital staff or people that work in facilities. We're talking about, we've got the ambulance drivers as well, and the ambos and paramedics. Then you've also got people that look after elderly in their homes. Yeah, it's like a whole industry. Yeah, it's a lot of people, heck of a lot of people.
Right. I've unfortunately been following, there's a lot of reports of country hospitals that are closing down right now because of being understaffed, and people have to travel an extra hour to get to hospital services. How do you think what sort of changes do you think we need to make to the current policies to bring these essential carers back into the workforce? Because I think we need to seriously start talking about that.
Well, they need to lift the mandates, I think, for starters. We're very careful when we're in there looking after people, very, very careful. You're washing your hands. I've done everything that I've been asked to do. I've had every vaccination that I've been asked to have. Just don't want to have that one, that's all. I have also been vaccinated. I have actually been vaccinated. I entered a trial back a few months ago, and I'm vaccinated with the protein-based vaccination, but it's not their government approved vaccination, so they want me to have that on top of it, and I think I'm blown if I'm having. I mean, I didn't really want to be vaccinated, but I figured that's a good option, but I really don't have this one on top of it, because they don't know the effects of that. So yeah.
Right. So the government is willing.
They just need mandates.
So the Australian government's willing to put your life at risk without any consideration for your health, just so that they can tick their boxes.
Yeah. Yep.
No, I think that's absolutely deplorable.
Yeah.
That shouldn't be.
Anybody can come and visit. You can visit somebody in hospital and not be vaccinated. So,
I mean, the evidence has come out about these mRNA vaccines that they don't stop transmission. So why are they forcing it on workers? I mean, if you're vaccinated, you'll still pass the virus just like anyone else. So it's not like it's stopping the transmission.
No, it's not. I mean, I've got my theories, but I'm I don't want to say that. I don't want to be classed as a, what do they call tinfoil hat person or a conspiracy theorist, but I've got my theories about why, but I don't think much we can do about that. I mean, everybody's got to stand up, everybody has to.
So what are you planning to do now, Tonya?
Yeah. Well, I honestly don't know at age. I've decided to take on study. I originally started off doing childcare. Back when my children were small, I did family daycare and I really enjoyed that. So I've decided I'm going to go back and do that. But because it's been 20 years since I did that, I've got to do a lot of study. So I've actually enrolled in the Diploma of Early Childhood, and I'm actually started that. So I'm doing that at the moment. So back to study again. I did think that I would be like 50 and back studying again, but I don't have any choice because I can't go back to nursing at this point. And to be quite honest, I don't think I really want to. If I'm going to be treated like that by people I work for, I don't want to be there. So there were other ways that they could have implemented this, but yeah, they haven't.
Hey, so we're in the middle of this. We're 2 years into this whole mess that's been going on, and we're still not talking about natural immunities in the mainstream. Why is that?
I think that's been we've been heading that way for a long time, with the flu vaccinations and all that sort of stuff. You know, we're really big on having to get vaccinated for this and vaccinated for that. I just remember as a kid, it's like someone had chicken pox, so we had a chicken party or something, and everybody went together and got it, and then you had natural immunity to that. It seems that we're not allowed to do that anymore. A kid's not allowed to get their hands dirty, and there's more people now that have got problems like asthma, and you know, every second kid has asthma these days. So I mean, there's something that we're not doing, because back when I was at school, when I was younger, all those years ago, of course, I think there was like one kid in the school that had asthma, and there was one child in the school that was overweight. Now it's like every kid has got asthma. There's something that we're not doing right. There has to be. So nothing's changed. We've still got the same things growing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not to sound like a conspiracy theorist myself, but it could be the fact that we've almost tripled the vaccine schedule. Well, back in your day, you might have gotten like, say, 6 vaccines. Now I think it's up to something like 21? Some ridiculous number of vaccinations that kids receive now. And that doesn't seem like that for you. I mean, sure, it does create immunities to certain things, but then you got that adjuvant there that's just irritating the immune system. When you're talking about so many, maybe it's having an effect. I'd love to get your thoughts on something. Just recently in the UK, they've passed a new law that says if you post any information that goes against mainstream narratives for COVID advice, you could go to jail for 2 years. What do you think about that?
Really? Is that in the UK?
In the UK.
Oh my goodness. I'd be in jail for 10 years now. I've already been banned off Facebook. So there's quite a few sites I've been blocked from. So oh well.
It seems like we're heading towards the territory.
And that wasn't even that. It wasn't even saying anything bad, really. I was asked an opinion and I gave it, and wow, did I get shot down?
It seems like we're heading into a territory where it's no longer science. Now what we're looking at is a religion, and there's a doctrine of faith, and if you go outside of the doctrine of faith, it's heresy, and if you're heresy, then terrible things happen to you. It seems like they're trying to do that across the entire world right now. I feel like I'm crazy just questioning it, looking at actual science, and some of the independent scientists have actually brought out contrary information. It seems like heresy.
I do a fair bit of research, and there's certain people which I listen to, and there's some which I don't. I mean, there's a lot of information out there. Heck of a lot trying to sift through it all. And you've got this scientist says something, and that's gospel, and another scientist. So how are you supposed to differentiate which one's right? You know, if one's gone to one university and one's gone to another, it's really hard, I think, for people to actually work out who's who's saying the right thing and who's not, because they've got qualifications. So it's very difficult. And I think the other thing which causes it too is previously the government hasn't been quite forthcoming with telling the truth or actually coming out with information. So when people aren't told things, they start thinking things and they start researching stuff and whatever. And I just think if they were honest with us in the first place, they wouldn't have as many people doing it, going and looking up things. And I just think that's a big problem.
Do you think there's a better way for them to handle that now? It seems like a bit of a mess the way that they're doing it at the moment. As you said, contradictory information and ever-changing policies. How do you think that we should have handled this from the get-go?
Yeah. Maybe they need to just get rid of the whole government altogether and start again. I don't know. I really don't know. Because you've got Scott Morrison, he's really not saying anything much. He's not saying anything. He's been quite quiet. I think he's just leaving it up to the states to make their minds up. I really don't know. I don't know. It's a hard one. I don't know what the answer is to that. I really don't, other than trying to get some people in that sort of know what's really happening down here at ground level.
So you think it's time for
because they're so out of touch.
You think it's time for a new, some fresh blood going into government?
Yeah, I think so. We've had like a two preferred party for quite some time. So
how are the elderly being treated in general in nursing care right now? Are they being looked after well, or are they being too isolated, do you think?
Oh, geez. I don't feel as though they're being looked after like they should be. I would like to think that when I would go and care for somebody, that I was caring for my grandmother. That's how I look after somebody. There's some really not nice things happening out there, and because they're so short-staffed, and I mean very short-staffed, and we were short-staffed even before these mandates happened, so they're even more short-staffed now because there's less people working. But sometimes, they might ring a call bell, and it's quite some time before you can get there to actually get to them. It's really sad. I don't think that they're being looked after like they should be. It costs a lot of money to go into a nursing home, a heck of a lot of money, and they're not receiving the care that they pay for. In some cases, at the lower end of the scale, they have to upfront to probably about $320,000 to even like a deposit to go into a nursing home, and then they take up to, I think it's 85% of their pension on top of that as well. But they then pay for everything that they need, other than like their clothes and toiletries and that sort of thing. The families are to pay for that, or that comes out of that last little bit. So that's a lot of money. That is a heck of a lot of money.
That's a ton of money. You expect to be in a 5-star hotel, the kind of money they pay.
Yeah. And some people do that. That's why these elderly people go on cruises. They just go on cruises back to back, because it's they get looked after and they're out on the cruise. But I mean, that's obviously not happening at the moment because of COVID, but so that's been known to happen. But yeah, they don't get looked after. They get their 3 meals a day, and if they're lucky, they'll get morning tea and afternoon tea. That's enough staff on to be able to do that. If you have somebody that needs help with drinking or eating, which is quite the case in a lot of situations, you've got to help someone eat. But if you're too busy and you've got one person on and you're meant to have 3 staff on, there's no way you can go along to like 15 people and help them drink their cup of tea and eat their piece of cake. You just can't do it. So by the time you get to them, their cup of tea's cold.
So with this attrition of carers in the elderly care homes, are you going to find that a lot of the elderly aren't getting the nutrition they need, aren't getting the care they need if they're barely getting the care now? Imagine what it's like if 20% of the care is left.
I know. Yeah. A lot of them do need assistance. A lot of them do, whether it's helping someone or prompting them to pick a fork and eat, or a spoon and eat, or actually physically having to do it for them. It's really hard. If you've got like 10 people that need to be fed, you just can't do it. They do have a problem with malnourishment and people in weight and stuff. They do have a problem with it. And that was a problem before all these mandates. So,
by getting rid of the mandates, we bring people back and we get better care for our elderly. How are we going to go about doing that?
Yes, definitely. Well, we know we need to lift those mandates. They've got to. They need to lift them. Other than that, I have heard, I don't know how true it is, I've heard groups that the government are actually getting people in from overseas to actually work to make up the shortfall of our nurses that aren't working. But those people obviously probably go to the hospitals first before they are allocated out to the nursing homes. So,
so there might be a bit of a delay between them arriving and getting to the nursing homes themselves.
Yeah.
Would you ever consider going back if they lifted the mandates and they said, "Come on back, Tonya. Sorry about the horrible letter that you received. Would you like to come back to the workplace?" Would you go back?
I would go back. I would go back because I love my job. I absolutely loved it. I love going into work. It was like we all look forward to going to work because I'd go to work and there would be these little faces looking at you, and quite often I'd have people say to me, "Oh, well, glad you're on today," and stuff like that. And that really makes you feel good, when, their faces light up. I'm glad you're here today. It's, I will. And it's not only that, I miss my workmates as well. Really miss my workmates. We had a really good team. But then even if I go back, they're not there. They're not there anymore. It's not the same. So, and the elderly people, they need continuity. They need to have the same people coming in, especially if you've got elderly people with dementia. You need to have the same people working because they respond better to routine and that sort of thing. So if you've got different people coming in, an agency and that sort of those sort of people, not anything wrong with agency, they have got some fantastic nurses and doctors and that work with agency, but the elderly people need to see the same faces all the time. It's very scary for them too. It's scary getting dementia because if you can imagine yourself waking up every morning not knowing where you are, the last thing you want is to have a face there that you don't kind of recognise, or someone that is a bit scary to you. It is frightening for an elderly person, very frightening. They've lost all their control, for starters. It's really, it's sad. It's very sad. It's sad. It's such a grieving.
We want to get the absolute best care we can to our elderly, because they're the people who have worked hard their entire lives to help build this nation that we're in now, enjoying. If it wasn't for all their hard work, we wouldn't be living as well as we are now. So we owe them quite a lot.
We certainly do. We certainly do. And a lot of them, a lot of that particular age group, they worked so hard. You didn't go on Centrelink, you didn't have social security, I think they called it back then. They worked really hard. But they're just not getting what they deserve. Because and there's also, we've noticed too that there's a lot of mental health as well coming in with elderly as well. So that's really difficult too. It's almost like they think that somebody becomes elderly, they don't have those mental health issues anymore. But mental health issues don't disappear just because you get old. They're still there, and they don't cater for that either. That's really hard too.
What do you think would be what do you think would be the best 3 changes that we could make to our elderly care system right now that would improve it?
Number one, we need more staff on the ground level. Really need, like, carers. That's what we need, carers. They're so top heavy in administration too. There's a lot of money to be made in aged care, if you understand what I'm getting at. And if you do things right, you can make a lot of money. And I just think the the staff is really the main thing. We've got a pad cupboard, right? So an elderly person might get allocated so many pads for the day. So okay, well, you can have 3 pads for the day and that's it. So if you go over those 3 pads, then you've got to try and you've got paperwork to fill out and to say why they needed that extra pad and stuff like that. But I mean, wouldn't you think if somebody messed themselves or they were wet, you just change it? But that's not what happens. It's like, well, they were only allocated that many, they can't have it.
Really? So they pay that much money and they can't even get pads when they need them. So maybe things are a bit more dire in the elderly care area than we thought.
They're not valued, I don't think. They're not valued.
Well, here at A&R, we definitely value our elderly, and we want to see them get the best care possible, which is why we're really pressing this issue and seeing what sort of changes that we can make. And I just want to summarize this for our listeners. So basically, a vaccine that doesn't prevent transmission is now costing a huge percentage of workers in the aged care who are already pretty much understaffed. And the best thing that we can do is get rid of that, because these vaccine mandates, you could equate them essentially to elder abuse, the way that it's affecting the industry. Maybe it's time that we get rid of it.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. I mean, these elderly, they get abuse from all different, abuse from all sides. You've got financial abuse, they take all their money, promise that you're going to get a service and you don't get it. They get, abuse because sometimes the food that they're served up is substandard. Also, what they get's cold. How would you like eating cold toast every morning? Or you're sitting there waiting to have your breakfast and it's sitting right in front of you, but you can't feed yourself. So you're watching it, waiting for somebody to come and assist you with that. There's abuse on all levels. It's terrible and it's really hard. And that's in the in like the aged care facilities. Then you've also got other things happening out in the community and stuff too. It's not, you've got some people living in their own homes, so, and trying to get help, and there's not a lot of help around. So yeah, it is bad. It is pretty. I think if they had more of a choice of vaccines, and I know just through talking to other staff, if they had another option like the protein-based vaccinations, which I think you've heard people talk about, more of the nursing staff would have taken that up.
Well, I think that we should have a lot of options. I think that some other options like ivermectin should be made available as well, which has been shown to actually create a immunity effect, just like the vaccines do. But India gets it. We don't. I don't understand that.
Why is that? I've got no idea. I mean, you would think if your people mean something to you, wouldn't you be trying everything you could to at least try to see what would work? So
I believe it's because of contracts we've locked ourselves into to buy a certain number of these vaccines, contracts which have actually made a lot of countries subservient to big mega corporations. We've seen countries like Venezuela having to put up their military as collateral to these companies. What the heck is a vaccine company going to do with a military?
I don't know. I have no idea. I absolutely have no idea. I don't know, maybe they send military in to care for our elderly. I don't know. I'd like to see them try.
Well, I think that some of our military would be really great carers, to be honest.
They probably would. I think the elderly, they'd probably like it for a bit, but it takes a special person to look after an elderly patient. It really does. And there's aged care nurses are so undervalued. They just put anyone in that job, and it's not just, it's a job for anybody. You have to you have to have the passion for it. And because if you don't, you can tell it's a specialized type of nursing. It's just like midwifery, or it's like pediatrics, or you want to go into working in the surgical side. I mean, working in like the geriatric section, that is specialized nursing. You've got to be a special person to be able to handle someone that's elderly. So
well, every one of you is worth your weight in gold.
It's sad.
And every person that we lose because of these stupid mandates, excuse my language, sorry to be upset here, but every single one of you that we lose is it's absolutely a tragedy. Terrible, because we need you guys so badly in that field.
Yeah, well, I know some really good, fantastic nurses that I have worked with for the last 16 years where I've been working that aren't working anymore. And they are just the most amazing people that I know. And if I was elderly or I was dying, that's the sort of person that I would want standing there holding my hand, and they're not there. It's really sad. My grandmother was in a place that I worked, and they were just fantastic with her. And I hate to say it, but my grandma, she passed away a couple of years ago. I'm actually glad that she's not here. I know that sounds awful, but she would just be mortified. She would just be horrified to be in a situation in a nursing home right now. It'd just be horrible. And just think of all those families too that have got a loved one in the nursing home that can't. What can they do? I know that they're scared too. They're scared about what's happening to their loved one, because what can they do? They can't do anything other than actually take them home. But it's really hard to look after an elderly person. It's very hard, especially if you have someone that has dementia and has a few what they call because they can get quite violent and quite angry and stuff like that. That's why they end up they're there for a reason. It's because their families find it difficult to look after. That's why they're there. So,
Tonya, if there's any government officials that are listening in right now, do you have a message for them?
Yeah, we need to really look after them. Just think about if it was your mum or your dad sitting in a wet pad and they'd been sitting there since 1 o'clock and it's like 9 o'clock at night and all they want to do is get into bed and they can't because there isn't a person available to do that. Just think if it was your mum, or your dad, I just think that they forget sometimes. They just forget. One day they're going to be in that position. And it doesn't matter how much money you have. If you don't have the staff to look after you, well, basically you're up the creek, aren't you? So, you could be in the best nursing home in the world, but if there is no staff to look after you, what are you going to do? You're still going to be sitting there in that wet pad. So,
yeah, that's a sad state of affairs that things are in right now, but I hope that with enough passion and drive, the Australian people can make changes that need to be made, and the government will start listening to us and listening to healthcare professionals like yourself, who really, you guys know what's going on. So you're the ones that they should be listening to right now.
Well, we do. And and we're hushed too. We're told we're not allowed to talk about it. You're not allowed to talk. You'll get into trouble. Don't talk to the media. Don't talk to politicians. Always told that.
It's when they tell you not to talk, exactly when you need to talk.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. But it is sad. It is sad. It is very sad. But, and that's just one small part of the medical industry. That's just one small part. You've got disability, then you've got the hospitals, you've got your ambulance. This is, big worry. It's actually really, when you think of it like that, it's really scary. And it's even worse out in the country. It's worse out in the country, yeah.
Well, I like to be an eternal optimist. I believe that we will get this back. I think that we'll open these areas back up and all the nurses and carers can return. It's just a small matter of getting the government to listen to us and moving aside so that we can carry on with business.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I truly believe that too. I've got this feeling that it's going to turn around. But I still think that things are going to probably get a little bit worse before they get. But I do feel that it will turn around. When, and how much longer it will hold out. That's the thing. So
thank you so much for your time, Tonya. You've been an absolute pleasure to have on today. You've really shed some light on some issues that we really need to be talking about right now. And unfortunately, the mainstream media simply is not shining a light. But here in our news, we're always going to be making sure that people have a voice to speak truth and reason.
Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Do you have any final messages for any listeners at home today?
Just be really, just love your parents, and really think about, when they're in these places, it's a very lonely time for them. It's a very lonely time. And yeah, I don't know, just really love your parents, I'd say. You've only got two parents, and just as you get older, they get older. You just really need to remember that. And I think a lot of people think it's okay. I might be 50. My parents are like 80, and I think people forget that sometimes about their parents. So yeah, as we get older, they get older. But yeah, my mum actually said that to me, so, and it really made me think one day. It does, it makes you think, because you think, oh, mum's always going to be there, but you don't. They get old, and they get old really quickly, and 1 minute they're there and the next minute they're not. And yeah, you just got to really treasure them.
Absolutely. Such a beautiful message. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no worries.